Have you ever been insulted in front of other people and suddenly found yourself unable to respond? Maybe someone mocked your appearance, questioned your intelligence, criticized your choices, or deliberately said something designed to embarrass you. In that moment, your mind probably searched for the perfect comeback. You wanted to say something so powerful that the other person would immediately become silent. You wanted to defend your dignity, prove your strength, and make sure nobody thought you were weak. But most of the time, when we respond from anger, we do not demonstrate strength. We reveal that another person has gained control over our emotional state. Today, we are going to discuss 7 intelligent responses that can stop disrespect, manipulation, criticism, and unnecessary conflict without shouting, insulting, or losing control. Our guest today is Shaolin teacher and speaker Shi Heng Yi, who is widely known for discussing discipline, awareness, personal responsibility, and mastery of the mind. Master Shi Heng Yi, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I am glad to be here. This topic is important because every person will eventually face disrespect. It may come from a stranger, a colleague, a friend, a partner, or even a family member. You cannot control whether people behave badly. You can only control whether their behavior enters your mind and begins controlling you. Many people believe that power means defeating another person in conversation. They think strength means having the sharpest insult, the loudest voice, or the final word. But genuine power is different. Genuine power is the ability to remain in command of yourself when someone is trying to take that command away from you. If another person can control your breathing, your tone, your thoughts, and your behavior simply by saying a few words, then that person has temporarily become your master.
So silencing someone does not necessarily mean humiliating them with a clever comeback?
No, the purpose is not to humiliate anyone. The purpose is to stop their negative behavior from controlling the interaction. Some people are not looking for truth. They are looking for a reaction. They want you to become angry, defensive, nervous, or emotional. Once you react, they may use that reaction against you. They may say, "Look how sensitive you are," or, "I was only joking." A calm response removes the reward they were expecting. When you refuse to participate in emotional chaos, the chaos often has nowhere to go. Response 1. What makes you say that?
Let us begin with the first smart response. What makes you say that? Why is this sentence so effective?
Because it moves the burden of explanation back to the person who made the statement. Imagine that someone says, "You are not intelligent enough to handle this project." Many people immediately start defending themselves. They say, "Yes, I am intelligent. I have experience. I have already completed many projects." Now they are standing in the position of the accused, trying to prove their value. Instead, calmly ask, "What makes you say that?" Now the other person must explain the basis of the statement. Was it based on evidence? Was it based on a specific mistake? Or was it simply an attempt to undermine your confidence? A vague insult is powerful only while it remains vague. When you ask for clarification, you expose its emptiness.
So rather than accepting the emotional frame, we ask them to become specific.
Exactly. Suppose someone says, "You always ruin everything." You can ask, "What exactly are you referring to?" The word "always" is usually emotional exaggeration. When the person must identify a specific event, the conversation becomes more grounded. You are not attacking them. You are simply asking them to take responsibility for their words. But your tone is important. Do not ask the question sarcastically. Do not say it with aggression. Say it slowly, calmly, and with genuine attention. What makes you say that? Then remain silent. Many people become uncomfortable because they expected resistance, not awareness.
And if they provide a reasonable explanation?
Then listen. A smart response is not a technique for avoiding all criticism. Sometimes criticism contains useful information. Strength is not refusing to hear uncomfortable truths. Strength is being able to separate useful feedback from unnecessary disrespect. If the person identifies a real mistake, you can acknowledge it without surrendering your dignity. "Well, I understand your concern. I will look into that." But if they cannot explain themselves, their statement loses power.
The second response is, "Law, that is an interesting opinion." It sounds simple, but it can completely change the energy of a conversation.
Yes, because it recognizes what the person said without treating it as an unquestionable fact. People often present their opinions as if they are universal truths. Someone may say, "You will never succeed." "You are making a terrible decision." "You are not good enough." If you begin arguing, you may accidentally give their opinion greater importance than it deserves. But when you say, "Lot has an interesting opinion," you create distance between their judgment and your identity. You are reminding yourself that their words are an interpretation, not necessarily reality.
Some people might consider that response dismissive.
It can be dismissive if spoken with mockery, but it can also be neutral. The deeper lesson is not the sentence itself. The deeper lesson is understanding that you do not have to accept every opinion that is handed to you. If someone gives you a package, you can refuse to carry it. In the same way, when someone gives you a negative judgment, you are not required to carry it into your future. You can hear it, examine it, and decide whether it deserves space in your mind.
Can you give us an example?
Imagine that you leave a secure job to start a business. Someone says, "You are going to fail. People like you are not made for business." You could spend 20 minutes trying to convince them that your plan will work. But why should your future depend on their agreement? Instead, say, "That is an interesting opinion. I see the situation differently." This response does not insult them. It also does not invite them to become the judge of your life. It communicates. You are allowed to have your view, but your view does not control my path.
That sounds like emotional independence.
It is. Many people remain trapped because they require permission from everyone around them. They want family members, friends, colleagues, and strangers to approve of their decisions. But if you need universal approval before taking action, you will never move. Someone will always misunderstand you. Someone will always doubt you. Someone will always project their fear onto your path. Your task is not to silence every opinion in the world. Your task is to make your inner direction louder than external noise.
The third response is more direct. Are you trying to help me or hurt me? When should someone use this?
Use it when criticism is disguised as advice. Some people say cruel things and then protect themselves by claiming they were only being honest. But honesty without compassion can become aggression. Suppose someone says, "Why, I'm only telling you the truth. Nobody respects you because you are pathetic." Instead of defending yourself, ask, "Are you trying to help me or hurt me?" This question forces the person to examine their intention. If they say they are trying to help, you can calmly respond. "Then speak to me in a way that is actually helpful." You are establishing a standard for communication.
That seems useful in close relationships because hurtful comments often come from people who claim to care.
Yes. People sometimes believe that closeness gives them permission to speak without discipline. But love without respect becomes control. Friendship without respect becomes exploitation. Family connection without respect can become emotional imprisonment. A boundary does not mean you hate the other person. A boundary means you are no longer willing to participate in a harmful pattern.
What if the person responds by saying, "You are too sensitive"?
You can say, "Maybe we understand respect differently, but I'm telling you clearly how I expect to be addressed. You do not need to prove that you are not sensitive. Sensitivity is not the central issue. The central issue is whether the conversation is respectful and constructive." Manipulative people often avoid responsibility by changing the subject. You say, "Your words were disrespectful." They respond, "You are too emotional." Now the conversation is no longer about their behavior. It is about your reaction. Do not follow them into that confusion. Return calmly to the point. We can discuss the issue, but not through personal insults. Clarity is often more powerful than aggression.
The fourth response is, "Can you repeat that?" This can be very powerful when someone makes a disrespectful joke or a quiet, insulting comment.
Yes, cruel people often depend on speed and surprise. They say something offensive, then quickly move forward before anyone examines it. When you ask them to repeat it, you interrupt the momentum. Imagine someone makes a humiliating comment about you in a group and expects everyone to laugh. Instead of laughing nervously or attacking them, look at them calmly and ask, "Can you repeat that?" Suddenly, they must decide whether they are willing to say it again with everyone's full attention. Many people will retreat. They may say, "Nothing. I was only joking." You can then respond, "I wanted to understand what was supposed to be funny." Again, remain calm. Do not perform anger. Let the person explain the joke.
Why does asking someone to repeat the comment make them uncomfortable?
Because unconscious behavior becomes weaker when brought into conscious attention. A person may feel powerful while hiding behind ambiguity. They can say something offensive and later deny what they meant. But when you ask them to repeat or explain it, the hidden intention becomes visible. The question creates a mirror. Some people dislike mirrors because they force them to see themselves.
Could this response be used in the workplace?
Certainly. Imagine a colleague quietly says, "You probably received that promotion for reasons other than your performance." Ask, "Could you repeat that clearly?" If they repeat it, follow with, "What exactly are you suggesting?" Now the conversation is no longer operating through hints. It must enter the world of responsibility. However, wisdom is always connected to context. If the person is dangerous, violent, or in a position where confrontation may place you at risk, do not use communication techniques as a substitute for safety. Walk away. Document the situation, seek support, or involve the appropriate authority. Self-mastery does not mean remaining in danger to prove courage. Sometimes the strongest response is leaving.
The fifth response may surprise people. You may be right. Many listeners might think this sounds like surrender.
It is not surrender. It is freedom from the need to win every argument. Consider what happens during conflict. One person says, "You are being selfish." The other person responds, "No, you are selfish." Then both begin collecting evidence to defeat each other. The conversation becomes a battle of identity. But when you say, "You may be right," the battle loses energy. You are not necessarily agreeing. You are allowing the possibility that you may not see everything clearly. This requires inner strength because the ego wants certainty. The ego says, "Must be completely right. I must prove the other person wrong." But a mature person can say, "Maybe there is something here that I need to consider."
How do we avoid allowing people to falsely accuse us?
The full response can be, "You may be right about part of that. I will think about it." Or, "You may be right, but I do not agree with the way you are speaking to me." You can acknowledge possibility without accepting mistreatment. For example, your partner says, "You have not been listening to me recently." Instead of immediately saying, "That is not true," try, "You may be right. Tell me when you felt unheard." Now the conflict can become a conversation. But suppose someone says, "You are useless and everything is your fault." You can say, "There may be things I need to improve, but I will not accept being spoken to in that way." Humility and boundaries can exist together.
Why is it so difficult for people to admit that another person may be right?
Because many people confuse being wrong with being worthless. If they admit one mistake, they feel their entire identity is collapsing. But a mistake is an event, not a mistake is an event. You can be wrong without being weak. You can change your mind without losing dignity. In fact, the ability to update your understanding is a sign of intelligence. A rigid mind breaks under pressure. A flexible mind learns.
The sixth response establishes a clear boundary. Why will respond when the conversation is respectful?
This is useful when the other person is shouting, insulting, interrupting, or becoming aggressive. Many people stay in these conversations because they believe walking away means losing. But remaining in a destructive interaction does not prove strength. It may only prove that you have not learned when to disengage. You can say, "I am willing to discuss this, but I will respond when the conversation is respectful." Then stop talking. If necessary, leave the room.
What if they follow you and continue shouting?
Repeat the boundary once. Do not explain it 10 times. A boundary that requires endless debate is no longer functioning as a boundary. Say, "I am not continuing this conversation right now." Then disengage. The other person may call you rude, weak, arrogant, or afraid. Remember, a person who benefited from your lack of boundaries will often criticize you when you finally establish them. Their discomfort does not automatically mean you are doing something wrong.
Some people feel guilty when they walk away from family conflicts.
Guilt is not always evidence of wrongdoing. Sometimes guilt is simply the feeling that appears when you stop repeating an old pattern. Maybe you were trained to remain silent, tolerate disrespect, or sacrifice your peace to keep everyone else comfortable. When you begin changing, your nervous system may interpret the new behavior as dangerous. That does not mean the new behavior is wrong. It means it is unfamiliar. Do not use boundaries to punish people. Use boundaries to protect the conditions necessary for a healthy relationship. A boundary says, want communication, but not at the cost of dignity.
The seventh response is not a sentence at all. It is silence. Why can silence be the strongest answer?
Because not every statement deserves a response. People often waste enormous amounts of energy defending themselves against individuals who have already decided to misunderstand them. You explain yourself once. They twist your words. You explain yourself again. They invent another accusation. Soon you are trapped inside a courtroom that exists only in their mind. At some point, silence becomes wisdom. Silence communicates. I do not need to attend every argument I am invited to.
But silence can sometimes make us feel weak, especially when someone has said something unfair.
This depends on the source of the silence. There is fearful silence, and there is conscious silence. Fearful silence happens when you want to speak, but are too afraid to protect yourself. Conscious silence happens when you are fully capable of responding, but understand that the interaction does not deserve your energy. They may look similar from the outside, but internally they are completely different.
How can we know whether silence is the correct response?
Ask yourself 3 questions. First, is this person capable of listening? Second, is this conversation likely to produce understanding? Third, will my response improve the situation, or will it only feed the conflict? If the person is not listening, if they only want attention, or if they are repeatedly provoking you, silence may be the clearest answer. But silence should not be used to manipulate or punish someone. Ignoring a partner for days to create anxiety is not self-mastery. That is emotional control. Healthy silence creates space. Manipulative silence creates suffering. Your intention matters.
The title of this episode is 7 Smart Responses That Will Silence Anyone. But many online videos teach aggressive comebacks designed to embarrass people. Why should we avoid that approach?
Because humiliation creates another cycle of humiliation. You may win the moment, but you strengthen the same behavior you claim to oppose. If someone insults you and you respond with a more painful insult, perhaps the room will applaud. But what have you demonstrated? Only that you can become more destructive than the other person. The deeper victory is ending the pattern without becoming the pattern.
So the goal is not to dominate the person, but to remain undominated internally?
Yes, you cannot always stop people from speaking, but you can stop their words from ruling your internal world. Suppose someone calls you a failure. If you know your direction, their words may still be unpleasant, but they do not become your identity. However, if part of you already believes you are a failure, the insult enters through an open wound. This is why inner work is necessary. Communication techniques are useful, but they cannot replace self-knowledge. When you know who you are, you do not need to fight every person who sees you incorrectly.
One difficulty is that these situations happen quickly. Before we remember a smart response, we may already have reacted emotionally. Is there a practical method for controlling that first reaction?
Use what we can call the 3-second discipline. When you feel provoked, do not answer immediately. Take 1 slow breath, relax your jaw, lower your shoulders, feel your feet touching the ground. Then choose your response. 3 seconds may seem small, but those seconds create a space between stimulus and action. Without that space, your emotional habit speaks for you. With that space, your awareness can choose.
What happens physically when someone insults us?
The body may interpret social threat as physical danger. The heartbeat increases. The breathing becomes shallow. The muscles tighten. The mind begins searching for attack or escape. This response can be useful in genuine danger, but during conversation it may lead to impulsive words. Regulate the body first. A disturbed body creates disturbed thoughts. This is why breathing is not merely a relaxation technique. It is a method of returning leadership to the conscious mind.
Let us go through a few everyday situations. Suppose a family member says, "You have achieved nothing in your life." What would be an intelligent response?
You could say, "What makes you say that?" If they begin listing concerns, listen for anything useful. If the purpose is only to hurt you, say, "That is your opinion. I am still responsible for deciding the direction of my life." Then end the direction of my life. Then end the discussion.
A colleague says, "Everyone here thinks you are incompetent."
Ask, who specifically has raised the concern, and what was the concern? Do not defend yourself against invisible people. Request specific information. Generalized claims are often used to create fear.
Someone makes a disrespectful joke about your appearance in front of others.
Ask, could you explain why that is funny? Then remain quiet. Do not rescue them from the discomfort they created.
Your partner is shouting and saying, "You never care about me."
You could say, "Well, I want to understand why you feel uncared for, but I cannot understand you while we are shouting. Let us continue when we are calmer." This recognizes the emotion while setting a boundary around the behavior.
An online stranger leaves a hateful comment.
Often, no response is necessary. Do not give a stranger unlimited access to your attention merely because they typed your name. Your attention is part of your life. Spend it carefully.
Could calmness ever become passivity? Are there moments when we need to be more forceful?
Certainly. Calmness does not mean weakness. A calm person can speak very firmly. For example, "Do not speak to me that way again. That comment was inappropriate. Or do not consent to this." These statements are direct. They do not require anger to carry power. When immediate safety, harassment, abuse, discrimination, or serious misconduct is involved, clever phrases are not enough. Document what happened. Seek support. Contact the relevant authority. Protect yourself. Inner peace should never become an excuse for tolerating ongoing harm.
That distinction is important because some people use spiritual ideas to tell others to tolerate abuse.
Yes, peace is not submission to injustice. Forgiveness is not permission for repeated harm. Compassion does not require unlimited access. You can understand why a person behaves badly and still remove yourself from their reach. You can wish someone healing while refusing to become the place where they express their unhealed behavior.
Many arguments begin because we desperately want to correct another person's opinion of us. How do we let go of that need?
Understand that every person sees you through the lens of their own history. One person may call your confidence arrogance. Another may call it courage. One person may call your silence weakness. Another may call it discipline. One person may call your boundaries selfishness. Another may call them self-respect. You cannot control every lens. If you continuously reshape yourself to fit the expectations of others, eventually you will no longer recognize yourself. This does not mean you ignore all feedback. It means you evaluate feedback according to truth, not according to volume. Ask, does this person know me? Do they want what is best for me? Is their feedback specific? Is it consistent with reality? Can I learn something from it? Then make your decision. Not every voice deserves equal authority.
Before we finish, let us summarize the 7 smart responses. The first is, "What makes you say that?" This forces vague criticism to become specific. The second is, "Well, that is an interesting opinion." This reminds you that another person's judgment is not automatically the truth. The third is, "Are you trying to help me or hurt me?" This exposes the intention behind criticism disguised as honesty. The fourth is, "Can you repeat that?" This brings hidden disrespect into full awareness. The fifth is, "You may be right." This removes the ego's need to win and creates space for reflection. The sixth is, "Oh, I will respond when the conversation is respectful." This establishes a clear boundary without unnecessary aggression. And the seventh response is silence. Not fearful silence, but conscious silence. The decision not to waste your life arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you.
Yes, but remember, these are not magic sentences. If you memorize the words but speak them with hatred, the conflict will continue. The power does not come only from the response. It comes from the state of mind behind the response. A calm sentence spoken by a disturbed mind may still contain aggression. Therefore, your first practice is not controlling the other person. Your first practice is observing yourself. Notice the moment your body becomes tense. Notice the moment your ego wants revenge. Notice the story forming in your mind. Then ask, what response will allow me to respect both myself and the truth?
What final message would you give to someone who regularly faces criticism, disrespect, or provocation?
Do not make your peace dependent on the behavior of other people. If your peace exists only when everyone treats you correctly, agrees with you, understands you, and praises you, then your peace is very fragile. Build a peace that can remain present even when the environment is imperfect. This does not mean you will never feel anger. Anger is a human emotion. But you do not have to give anger control of your voice. You do not have to convert every wound into a weapon. You do not have to prove your strength by destroying another person. Sometimes your strength will appear as a clear sentence. Sometimes it will appear as a boundary. Sometimes it will appear as an apology. Sometimes it will appear as walking away. And sometimes it will appear as complete silence. The person who has mastered the need to react cannot easily be controlled.
That is a powerful place to end. The next time someone tries to provoke you, remember, you do not need the loudest voice in the room. You need command over your own mind. Choose clarity instead of chaos. Choose boundaries instead of revenge. Choose awareness instead of impulse. Because the most powerful response is not the one that leaves another person speechless. It is the one that allows you to walk away without losing yourself. Thank you for listening. We will see you in the next episode.